I'd like to call this meeting of the Columbus County Board of Education to order. All of us have had a chance to look at the agenda for today. Do I have a motion that we accept the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Coleman, second by Mr. Long. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of the said motion, know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, is Mr. Herring?
Mr. Herring is online. He's called in,
Okay.
so
Just
he is
wanted to
with
make
us.
sure. Good. Recognition of guests?
We have several school staff members here, and there's people out there in the foyer as well, and Diana Matthews from the newspaper. Thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. We appreciate it.
Okay, our public comments, can you state?
We do have some. I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Reed.
And I think that we have a 20-minute total time limit, Mr. Beal.
That's
and
correct.
You can go ahead and explain that.
There'll be a 20-minute time period. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, so that would be about 3 minutes apiece, 3 and a half or whatever. If you will keep your remarks to that, the first person on the agenda is Sherry Kennedy. Ms. Kennedy,
Yes.
if you'd like to come in, you have the floor for about 3.5 minutes.
And Miss Kennedy, if you want to come and sit right here, there's a microphone.
Okay. And should I keep my mask on the whole time?
Uh,
I'm speaking?
If you need to, if
Okay.
we can't understand you, then
Okay.
I think we might be able to.
I'll let you know when you have about 30 seconds left, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So when you start, I'll start.
Good morning. I just want to thank you all for hearing me this morning. As you know, I've seen many of you. My son, Caleb Kennedy, has been in front of the board, I think 4 or 5 times, asking you to reconsider allowing students at Columbus Charter or Columbus CCCA to be able to play sports at their home school. We have repeatedly asked for this, and I think over the past year and a half, students need the social and emotional learning, need that connection with other students. And as you've called this special board meeting today to reconsider a decision you've made in the past, we think that you should reconsider this one as well. There are too many opportunities, too many avenues of learning that students are missing. There's inequality, they're not getting what they need, and the only reason that we've gotten in return is the ADM. Over and over again, the ADM. I know that Columbus County has lost students. I know that the county as a whole has lost people, according to the census. I hope that we will not limit our children's education based on numbers. Based on we're afraid to play a more difficult team. I just ask that you consider allowing all students an opportunity to play. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you. Second person is Annalise Kennedy.
Hi, I thank you for this time. I'm also a part of this sort of plea for Caleb Kennedy, but it's not really just about Caleb Kennedy. It's about providing equal access for all the children in Columbus County. Some of the reasons that you've given in the past is that, you know, Caleb knew going to CCCA that sports were not an option, but you know, in return, he was getting to be able to go to Southeastern classes early because it's the early college program. But kids from East Columbus, South Columbus all get that opportunity as well to take classes at Southeastern and have the opportunity to get ahead in that sense. But Caleb is not allowed to play sports because of the ADM, because of various reasons that you're providing. But in reality, he's just losing his opportunity to have equal access to those sports, even though there are avenues and pathways for him to have equal access. And so I'm just asking you guys to really think on this decision you're making because it's not just about Caleb, it's about all the students and having their capability and their constitutional right to an equal education. And that includes sports education, and that includes their physical well-being, not just their academic and mental well-being. So thank you for your reconsideration.
Thank you.
Caleb Kennedy.
Hi, my name is Caleb Kennedy. You know, this isn't about soccer. This isn't about sports. This is about what's best for the kids and what's right. And sorry, thank you. And I know numerous of people at my school, such as Deontay Grosvenor, Kalia Brown, Edwin Gonzalez, David Rojo Trejo, Tyler Thompson, Aiden Gonzalez, Joshua Glover, Giselle Parker, Kiki Gerald. You know, it's not just me. You know, there's more people at my school that would want sports, and you know, they've already mentioned the ADM, and I've already disproven that it does not affect the average daily membership. You know, in the last letter you wrote to me, it said, prior to your enrollment of Columbus Career and College Academy, you and your family are made aware sports participation at your previous high school would not be an option. After careful deliberation, the board has determined that they want to keep the same enrollment process and allow only students enrolled at traditional high schools to play athletics. I trust you understand the position of the board and decision. You know, just because I was made aware that I can't play sports doesn't mean that it's right. You know, Rosa Parks, was arrested for violating a city law. And it was a law that was racial segregated, of public buses. The front 10 seats were, it said, permanently reserved for white passengers. And that was a city law. And another argument was, why don't I just go to East? This is the Board of Education. Education first. And you should be complimenting me for trying to get a better education at a better school. But, I just thank you for this time. I hope that you can reconsider. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Adrian Mosley.
Good morning. I'm speaking on behalf of the optional math option. I have 2 children in Columbus County Schools. I have one that's going to East Columbus senior high. She's in the 7th grade. Then I have another one that's going to be going to that goes to Admiral Elementary. My daughter that's going to the 7th grade. She just recently got her second vaccination because she turned 12. So she was able to get them. But my other daughter that's at elementary school is 7. She has severe asthma. She's already been hospitalized in her little small life for 7 years, 3 times already. Her asthma clinic doctor recommends that she doesn't go to in-person school, but they don't have the option of virtual this year for the elementary school. So what I'm here today to ask is that you please reconsider having, instead of it being optional, making it a requirement for these kids to have to wear a mask, because some of them are not even old enough to be able to get the vaccine. If she was, I would get it. And then another thing is, will there be grief counselors at the schools to help these children deal with, God forbid, but if there are deaths of their friends or peers that will come from them not wearing masks or not being old enough to be vaccinated? And then also, I've had some of the parents talking about, not me, but some of them were talking about wrongful death lawsuits. Are you prepared for that? But my main goal is, I was at open house the other night, and they said they're not allowed to police it. They're not allowed to tell them they have to wear a mask. That's what they've been told. So for the sake of my children and a lot of my friends' children, a lot of the other children, what I'm asking is please reconsider at least having these children wear a mask, especially in the elementary schools, because they don't have the option for virtual. They can't speak on behalf of themselves. They're too young. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martinez.
Good morning.
Good
My name
morning.
is Joandy Martinez, and I am speaking on behalf of Caleb Kennedy, a student at Southeastern Community College. He has not been recently able to play for any other sports team, especially not for East Columbus High School. This has been heartbreaking, not only for me, but for the rest of the athletes on the soccer team. We're missing a peer, a teammate, a friend, a family member of the soccer team. It's disheartening to see a player work at soccer for the last 3 years at East Columbus, only to not finish his last senior year because of the rules and restrictions that you set in place prior to this school year. Caleb Kennedy has been through thick and thin during his time on the soccer team, enduring the same pain and the same suffering as us, while not even attending the same school. There are plenty of other cases that include students playing for other schools that they are not participating in. But what we should take out of these cases is that there is a passion for sports and a drive to be a part of a bigger picture. Being a part of a team, being a part of a family. Working just as hard as the home students of that school on the sports team, and then working even harder at Southeastern Community College. Caleb Kennedy is not the first to impact a sports team while not attending the same school, and he most certainly will not be the last. Thank you for your time, and I hope you consider it. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Timothy A. Lance.
Good morning. I'm here this morning. I represent the New Era Association, a small group of 9 churches, 7 of which have students in the Columbus County School District. One of the things that we're here to talk about is the COVID situation and the request that you reconsider on the mask wearing. It is our feeling that you should really enforce the mask wearing in school. As I think I already heard someone said, some of our children aren't able to make that decision for themselves. And I personally have a grandson in Cumberland County school system that cannot go to school this year because they're not offering a virtual class for him. And so his mom have to maybe quit her job or get someone to teach him at home, recommended by his doctor because he have a severe asthma case. So I just want to say to us this morning that we need to consider mandatory mask wearing in the classroom. I mean, we already have it on the bus, so it's kind of funny that you're going to make a child wear a mask on the bus. He gets off the bus and you take it off and go in the same classroom. So I think we should make it mandatory that students wear a mask in the classroom. And that you also offer a virtual, I don't know if you do this year or not, I didn't see that, but that you offer virtual for those who do not want to come back in the situation because this thing have gotten crazy again. We in Columbus County, we still have the lowest number of those vaccinated. And of course, we also realize that those who have been vaccinated can also still get the virus. I've seen it happen a couple of times. But so far, we've had school cancel games and stuff on Friday night because of the virus. So we just want to encourage you to reconsider and make mask wear mandatory and also offer virtual setting for those who do not want to return. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes the public comment sign up.
Okay, special presentations, recognition, curriculum instructions.
Don't have any.
Okay, general items.
So, Mr. Chairman and board members, I asked for this called meeting to discuss our COVID protocols with schools starting back for pre-K 8 on Monday. I wanted us to discuss our current COVID protocols that have been in place while our high school students have been coming to school. So we were fortunate to have our academic session occur for the last 2 weeks, and that actually gave us a chance to see kind of what was going to take place or what took place with COVID cases, quarantines, all of that during those 2 weeks. And, you know, while we had a really good turnout for our high schools, with about, like we said, about 100 students at each school did not attend, but that we had a large number otherwise to participate in the academic session. We ended up with a lot of students going out of school with COVID, testing positive for COVID, or having to quarantine. I am sharing with you some data that we collected over these last 2 weeks. And you can see I broke it down by school, and I also broke it down by the percentage of students who were using or were choosing to wear a mask. And you can see that the number of positive cases at CCCA, after we started, CCA started a little bit earlier, but after we started basically on the 9th, there were 10. Total in August, there were 12 at CCCA, and you can see that there were 9 quarantines. And about 60%, we did a random, we picked one day, we went to the schools, and we just counted the number of students that wore masks and the number that were not, and determined a percentage from that at that day. And it was pretty, I mean, that was what we were seeing otherwise, even just in our walkthroughs each day. And 60% of the students at CCCA were wearing masks. When you look at East Columbus, you can see that since August the 9th, there have been 3 positive cases and 5 quarantines, but 70% of their students have been wearing masks. At South Columbus, there have been 35 positive cases since August the 9th and 36 quarantines, and only 24% of the students wearing masks. Now, I'm not suggesting that the mask wearing is keeping transmission, because we have not seen transmission from student to student at our school. We're not connecting the cases, except for on an athletic team. We had a connection between 3 cases. I'm not suggesting that. Because last year we didn't have transmission either. We could not connect the cases in that same way. What I am suggesting is that I feel like if the students are making a choice at East Columbus to wear a mask, or students that are choosing to wear a mask, that maybe when they're outside of school, they're also making a choice to wear a mask or do something for prevention. Maybe not wear a mask, but they're social distancing, or they're making different decisions about what they're doing. So it's reducing the number of cases, positive cases. What I do want to say, though, is that when a positive case comes into one of our schools, what that causes us to do is have to contact trace. And we're finding that when we contact trace in school, that obviously we have to check where has that student been, who have they been around, were those students that they were around wearing masks, at what level were they wearing masks, how often, how close was that person to anyone else, through every single class and every single transition of the day. So when one positive case happens in the school, it takes hours to go through that contact tracing. And then when we have an exposure, if we have to quarantine somebody because of an exposure, we expect the principal or the nurse to make a personal contact with each one of those parents to let them know that their child was exposed and they're going to have to quarantine for 5 days or for 10 days. We also send a letter to the parents of the students in the classroom where there was a positive case so that they are aware that that case did occur. That's a lot of time for that contact tracing. And I know at South, where there have been a number of cases, the principal, the staff, the nurse, all they have done for the last 2 weeks is contact trace, and have not been able to do anything else. So one of the things that when you're wearing a mask, when we have students wear a mask in school, if Dr. Williams, who's sitting next to me, is positive, and I have on a mask, he has on a mask, even though he's positive, I'll be notified that there was someone in my classroom that was positive, but I don't have to quarantine at that point. I will be told to monitor my symptoms, and so the principals aren't spending all their time going back and trying to figure out who needs to quarantine, who doesn't. They're spending time, yeah, they'll have to notify, but they're not going to spend as much time on figuring out who has to quarantine, who doesn't have to quarantine, and then tracking that. So the mask wearing will help us to limit the number of kids who are having to quarantine. From just the first 2 weeks of school with high school, as of yesterday, so not even 2 weeks, as of yesterday, those students have lost, that we've had to quarantine or have been positive, have lost over 12,000 instructional hours. That's a lot of time for students to be out of school. And so we want students to be in school. We believe that the best way for them to learn is in person, and we want them to be in school as much as possible. Not only did we have students, and I can't account for the number that this impacts, but not only did we have students who had to be quarantined, but once that letter went home, we had parents and students who chose to self-quarantine because of that letter that went home. So they're missing instructional time. Students are still able to get their materials through the Google Classroom, but that is not the same as being in the classroom, having discussion with their peers, hearing from the teacher, having those conversations, and hearing the dialogue that occurs within the classroom. So I would ask that the board require all students and staff to wear masks while on student grounds in any indoor setting. Continue to wear the masks on the bus or any school transportation. The times that they would not be required to wear a mask would be if they're outdoors, and if they are actively eating. So when they go into the cafeteria, they'll have their mask on, or if they're in their classroom eating breakfast, they'll have their mask on. When they start eating, they can take their mask off, but as soon as they finish, they put their mask back on. If someone is working by themselves in an indoor space, in an office or a classroom, they don't have to wear their mask. Within a classroom, if a student is more than 6 feet from another student or another person, they could take a mask break and take their mask down. But it would be under the direction and the guidance of the teacher in the classroom. So it would not be a choice of their own. It would be when the teacher feels that that's okay. So even in those numbers, those percentages that I gave you, we did have some students that did not have a mask on, but they had it pulled down because they were sitting 6 feet away from somebody. And so, those students were making a choice to move it down, but it was because they knew they weren't near someone. So, to me, if they're, based on our quarantining process that's required by the state, we would not have to quarantine that student when they had their mask pulled down. But we would need it to be under the guidance of the teacher and students not making that decision on their own, so that we don't have issue about who should and who shouldn't. We still obviously need to continue to do our sanitizing, using hand sanitizer, washing our hands, just like we did last year. We really were very successful of keeping kids in school last year because of the protocols we had in place. And so basically I'm asking for us to move back to those protocols that we had last year with a little bit of tweaking. Obviously we have more students in our schools this year than what we did last year because we don't have the students who were 100% virtual. So with more students, I think we need to be even more, trying to do more to keep that number of quarantines happening in our schools, to reduce that number. So I would ask that the board, and I am recommending that the board require masks. I will say that we're going to continue to monitor the numbers, monitor the transmission in the community, monitor the number of vaccinations that are happening to determine when we can make masks optional again. But right now, the community transmission is going up based on what we're being told from the health department. We did have some more people get vaccinated, but it's nowhere near the numbers that we're being told that it would need to be. So I am asking that the board, and recommending to the board, that we put masks back in place with those stipulations that I outlined earlier.
You've heard the recommendation to the superintendent, and I'm going to read these to make sure that we're all on the same page. We all understand that what we're asking. There's only just a couple, so I think so we all understand. It says all students and staff, as well as any visitors on Columbus County school properties are required to wear mask face coverings beginning Monday, August 23rd, 2021 in all indoor areas. Number 2 says all students and staff are required to wear a mask face covering on any school district transportation. 3, students and staff would not be required to wear a mask face covering in outdoor settings during active eating, while alone in an indoor space, or when more than 6 feet from the other persons while sitting at a desk, which is determined by the staff member in the classroom. Number 4, it is strongly encouraged that a mask face covering be worn in outdoor settings if social distancing cannot be maintained. And number 5, school staff shall follow the same protocol from last school year for sanitizing, requiring the use of hand sanitizer, hand washing often, and implementing processes to maintain 3 feet of social distancing as much as possible. We all understand exactly what superintendent's recommended. Do I have a motion that we do?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Strickland, second by Mr. Coleman. Any discussion?
Yes. Yeah. We, as a school board, tried to allow choice. Yet, in the last week, just in the last week, I have gone to 3 different locations and seen people that I knew were supposed to be quarantining in public without a mask on. So, if we can't do the things necessary, then we have to take drastic measures. And I feel like this is a drastic measure. But, you know, Ms. Matthews, you're here. I beg people in this county to follow what a quarantine is, because it's not being done, and it is you know, I mean, you look at data. I looked a lot yesterday at the DHHS data, trying to make a decision or get my information in line before I came here this morning. Columbus County, if you look at the hospitalizations per 100,000 residents, Columbus County is the 3rd most in the state. Okay? Our vaccination rate is 33. I've heard 33. I've heard 34%. Yeah, but yet we continue to not. I mean, I was at the West Columbus Bash preseason scrimmage and saw two people that I knew were supposed to be quarantining sitting in the stands without a mask on. I went into the grocery store last Thursday night, saw a person that I knew had tested positive within the last 10 days. They're in the grocery store without a mask on. Yeah, we're not going to do anything to flatten a curve or whatever it may be if we're not going to follow what is recommended. And, you know, if you don't believe COVID's real, I'll take you to any hospital within a 100-mile radius, and I'll take you to their COVID floor. You know, the state of Alabama right now has no ICU beds available. The entire state is full with people in an ICU setting. My office is based in Houston, Texas. One of my employees had a family member that had to be transferred to, had to be put into an ICU. Do you know where they were put in an ICU at? Utah. They had to be flown to Utah to be put in an ICU bed. Now, if you don't think it's real, you know, we've got to follow the recommendations, and you know, we as a county are not doing that. And I know I've been on my soapbox, but I'll get off of it now. But
thank you, Mr. Strickland. Well, you know, one thing I appreciate the superintendent coming back and us coming back with the idea that when we had our last meeting that we would take a look at what is going on. We were very much wanting to know exactly what was going on in our schools. We've had great data. I appreciate that. But one thing I know as a past educator and also as as one of our board members is that the safety of our kids are first. The safety of our kids are first.
Right.
And I hope that we continue to make the decisions that is best for our children and the safety of our students and staff. And like Mr. Strickland said, this is no joke. This is life, and it might be life that we have to put up with for a while. But we need to make sure that we're taking every precaution as a board, that we're taking every precaution as a school system, and I appreciate everything that you've done and your staff in letting us know. And hopefully, this is something that we can do that we can do our part with making that sure that happens. Anybody else?
Can I interject
Yes.
for just one moment? I do want to say that I did poll the principals yesterday, and all 14 of the principals are in agreement that we should require masks. The staff, they checked with their staffs as well, and the majority of their staffs also believe that we should require masks. So I know that there have been previous discussions about how it still is a challenge to talk and to teach with a mask on, but they even feel that at this point it is necessary to require masks.
As Mr. Edwards said, I think the safety of our kids is the ultimate here. But there's got to be a second goal here, and that's to keep our kids in the classroom in a face-to-face learning situation. I believe the only way we're going to do that short term is if we put our kids back in a mask. That's the option. We either go home and go virtual and we end up losing another year, or we wear masks until the numbers turn around. And I think we need to be just as willing to come back and change this decision when it's warranted as we are to change the last one we made. But right now, I just believe that's the only way in the world that we can go and keep our kids in school and safe.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right, Mr. Long. Yeah, and when I pulled up in the parking lot this morning, Mr. Edwards informed me that there was a 4-year-old that passed away in Horry County yesterday from COVID.
Horry County has lost 2 school board members this year, lost one this week to COVID.
And I mean,
It's a serious thing. I just want to thank everybody for being here and the board coming back in today. And whenever we make decisions, I think that I'm glad to see that we could come back and tweak a decision that we did make. I mean, that's very important to be flexible. The number one goal is to stay in school for the health and well-being of our students. As we've seen in our test scores and where we're at, virtual does not work. The number one goal is to educate our children and to keep people well. On the eastern end of the county, we've lost several in the last 18 days. And I'm going to say the same thing that I did at the last meeting. We need to do what we need to do to stay safe, to stay healthy. Because, the consequences of getting this, if you have been sick or if you have your immune system's not where it needs to be, is fatal. Get vaccinated, wear your masks, social distance, do what's right. If you're not going to do it for you, do it for your neighbor. Because there's so many diseases out there that we don't even know if a person's got, and we do what we're supposed to do there. We just please. It's very important for our school system and as a family. This county is pretty much a family. I have family members all over this county. As a family, let's do what we need to do. Let's encourage people to do the right things. This is not a political stunt. This has nothing to do with politics. This is real. And until everybody in this county understands that the #1 goal is to stay safe and educate our children, we're going to continue to battle this.
Right.
So, you know, I appreciate the effort for the last 2 weeks, and you know, let's tackle this thing and get us going on the right direction.
One thing I'd like to say, and I see Georgia and Miss Josephine sitting here, I appreciate the comments that I've received from the principals.
Yeah.
And I know how hard they've worked. I know how difficult it seems to be, but, you know, I know where their heart is. And I know the ones who have contacted me over the last couple of days where their heart is and the love for their children. And I just want to say thank you, Georgia. Thank you, Miss Josephine, for
Yes, thank you all.
for what you do and how you do it. I know how difficult it is without a pandemic going on, but with this going on, I can only imagine.
Yeah, there was one particular principal that I know called us all. You know, we don't want a mask. You don't need to put kids in a mask. After 7 days,
We all
that
received
principal
it.
called and said, "Hey, you need a mask."
Yeah.
So,
Any other discussion?
I don't know if Mr. Herring has anything.
Monty, you would like to say anything?
He might be.
Hey, good.
Okay, any other discussion? No other discussion? All in favor of the said motion that the superintendent recommended, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The recommendation passes.
Okay. So we will notify our schools. Obviously, I will send this to the principals immediately, and I know Mr. Jones will get that out to our parents. I really ask that parents help us with this by making sure that they send their child to school with a mask. Obviously, we will have masks available if someone forgets one, but we need them to assist us. And to Mr. Strickland's point earlier, we do need people, if they are not well, to stay home. If there is somebody that was positive in your home, you need to quarantine if that's what you've been directed to do. And, you know, help us to make sure that we don't have any transmission within our schools and that we can keep as many kids as possible in person in our classrooms each day. And it is going to take every one of us to be able to do that. It's a team effort and a partnership with our families, but we really need their help in that aspect. And if your child is not quarantined, then send them to school.
I want to say, Ms. Mosley, thank you. Appreciate you being here, taking time. Dr. Lance, thank you so much. We appreciate everything you always do. Thank you so much. And because, you know, I have a 4-year-old granddaughter, and I really don't know what in the world I'd do if something happened to one of my grandchildren. I really, you know, I can only imagine. And it seems like it's getting worse with our young people. So thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Strickland, Dr. Meadows and Dr. Williams for all y'all have done.
okay.
So our next meeting is scheduled for September 13th, and it will be at East Columbus. I don't believe we have any other business unless someone does.
Can we go in closed session for just a few minutes?
Do you remember?
Yes, we can go in. I mean, it has to be restricted to whatever we put it in because it's a special meeting.
So whatever is announced, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you remember your...
Do we need to go?
Yeah.
Oh, I move that Columbia County Board of Education during closed session to discuss information that is not public under General Statute 143318.
Do I have a second?
Second.
When you can, let me know about that student.
Will.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion? No
Thank y'all.
discussion? Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor, said motion, all by saying aye. Any